The Bahrain Grand Prix is quite special. It's one of only 2 dusk races, and the cars just sparkle on track. The Bahrain race is one of 2 dusk races, Singapore being a night race. Now the difference is, this race starts at 6 p.m. The sun sets at 5:52 p.m. and funnily enough, this weekend on the Sunday the moon rises at 5:38 p.m. Now a lot of people say, why don't they start at half an hour earlier, saying get a bit of the sun going down? That was evident in testing, because a lot of the drivers were saying that when they're coming down this section of the track, they had this glaring sun in their eyes and they had to be very careful at that particular spot. This track is also unusual in so much as the spectators, when it's a normal race, are all condensed on the main straight and just behind it on the secondary straight. There are no spectators at the back of the circuit, and with this race being limited number of spectators, they're only going to be in the grandstand on the main straight and also turn 1 grandstand, and even then they're not going to be full. They're only going to be, I'm guessing, maybe 1/3 capacity. It's going to be down on atmosphere, but certainly better than having no fans. And in order to get into the track this race, you need to be, as a spectator, you need to have been vaccinated at least 2 weeks ago, or you need to have had COVID and be free of it for 2 weeks. And the way that the authorities will tell when you come into the track is that you have to show your Be Aware app on your phone. So on this phone here, you'll be able to show them your green badge. If you haven't got a green badge, you're not getting into the track with your ticket. And what does a ticket cost here for the race? 100 BD, that's around 350 Australian dollars. That's for a 3-day ticket. Now you all know that we should have been in Australia with race 1, but of course that's been put back later in the season, and I'm still not 100% sure that's going to go ahead. But that aside, this is the season opener, and it is the 3rd time that Bahrain has been the season opener. It was also the season opener in 2006 and 2010. In 2014, they added the lights, and boy, didn't that change the look of the race dramatically. Now, it is really sparkly. A little bit harder to shoot photographically because obviously there's not as much light, but the cars just sparkle underneath the numerous lights that are around the 5.4 kilometre track. Weather-wise, it's going to be great weather for the Friday and the Saturday, in the early to mid 30s Celsius. But on Sunday, race day, we then drop down to about 25 degrees and there'll be some cloud about. So unfortunately, we won't be able to see the moonrise. I used to always look at pictures of the cars on race day with the sun setting in the grandstand. I think, hang on, the race doesn't start until after the sun goes down. Those photos were shot as the cars head out to the grid, because they do 4 or 5 laps before they go to the grid, and it gives the photographers who are at the back of the track an opportunity to shoot them. But you've got to be at the back of the track, which means you're missing out on the action on the grid. And even though we can't access the grid like we normally would, we can still get access to images from the outside of the track through the wire. Now, when are the cars on track? Well, they're on track Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Friday, there are 2 practice sessions, one mid-afternoon and one under lights in the early evening. These are 1-hour sessions. Now, you're probably used to 90-minute sessions. They've been 90 for as far as I can remember. Quali's an hour, race probably end up being an hour and a half. Unless, like last year, there's a few prangs and incidents, and then it could end up anything at 2.5, 3 hours. If you're on the receiving end of some brilliant service at the hotel that you're staying at, why don't you let the management know? A, the staff member gets a pat on the back, and sometimes you'll get a reward for simply bringing it to their attention. And if you can do it in writing, it carries even more punch. I've just travelled 34 kilometres from the centre of Manama out to this area where the Bahrain International Circuit is located. So what's around here? I can tell you there's a lot of empty land. There's a beautiful hotel just over nearby us, and this is the Sofitel. It's very close to the track, and I imagine a lot of the team's personnel will be using this as their base. There's a service station and a cluster of fast food networks just over to my left, and a couple of lovely food vans here. And behind me is your media accreditation centre and a ticket sales office. There's also the Bahrain University and a whole host of oil wells, and just up on the hill, that white dome that you might see in the background of some of the TV shots, that's a military installation, I believe. The media centre here is very impressive, with glass looking out onto the paddock, and sometimes we can shoot through that glass and get some great shots of drivers. Food-wise, we're fed in the media centre, which is great because we don't have to go too far to get a feed. One of the things I like about this race, and it's also the same with Abu Dhabi, is that Middle Eastern feel where you get a lot of the locals out here in their traditional dress, and it adds a completely different vibe than we get with a European or an American race. Behind me is the main entrance for vehicles. Spectators, a little bit further to my left. But you can see the big tower behind me, and it's an impressive piece. Are we allowed to shoot up there? No, we're not. Although there are a couple of prize photographers who get that opportunity. But bearing in mind that on race day and perhaps quali, there'll be all sorts of VIPs up there. Kings, queens, princes, princesses. And as such, it's quite secure. Where will I shoot from? I don't know. The start's always interesting because you want to get 20 cars condensed at night, and there's every chance there'll be sparking as they come down that straight. Perhaps not the first lap, but certainly the second lap. If there's room on the tower at the first turn, I'd certainly love to be up there, but failing that, perhaps inside at turn 1. Even though there'll be a smaller crowd than normal, and I'm guessing on race day maybe 10 to 15,000 people, there's still plenty of activities here for them to keep busy when the cars aren't on track. Things like a Ferris wheel and a whole host of rides. So what will we be looking out for this race? Well, there's some great stories, aren't there? Sebastian Vettel coming back refreshed and looking for a positive season. You've got Fernando Alonso after a 2-year break. He's back in the sport and he's great for F1. Daniel Ricciardo's joined a new team. He's got a strong McLaren underneath him. I think he's going to do well this year, and I'd like to see him on the podium for race 1. Carlos Sainz, he's moved to Ferrari, but I think Ferrari are going to struggle in this first race. Let's see how Carlos deals with that. You've got 3 rookies racing this weekend. Mick Schumacher, big story there. Nikita Mazepin, another big story for different reasons. And I think Yuki may be the surprise package. And I think Yuki could be the surprise package. 2 brand new teams kick off the year in Alpine. I always want to say Alpine, but maybe that's a European thing, it's Alpine. And Aston Martin. Speaking of Aston Martin, they are providing the safety car and the medical car. The safety car is the Aston Martin Vantage, and it's got a rear wing on it. That's not something you normally see on the road car. The other one is a DBX. That'll be driven by Alan van der Merwe, and the main car, the safety car, will be driven as usual by Bernd Mailander. But will those cars be seen at every race? No, they won't. In fact, they're kicking off the season, but for next race we go back to the Mercedes, although they will be painted bright red for the Italian race. And from then on, they will swap Aston Martin, Mercedes-Benz in alternate races. What I have noted is there's not a great deal of buzz around Bahrain about this GP, and perhaps that's understandable given that spectators really aren't given much access to the event. With that said, I'm going to ask you to like the video, subscribe, hit the notifications button, and if you want to become a member and you can't find the join button, simply go to the link in this video. Thank you to the noisy car behind me. For digital images, head to prostarpics.com for my F1 driver photo books. You can order them online at kimillman.com. And for my best images from the track live and during the week, head to Instagram at kimillman. And with that said, thanks for watching and stay passionate. Oh, it's a bit windy at the moment.